Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with John Riggio. He's not Rocket Man, he's Racket Man. That's your new nickname. Our tennis pro, our architect, and just all around amazing person who has these fascinating stories. And yeah, there's some big names involved too, even though he's the big name himself. But John, I don't know how to introduce you because every week you just surprise me with new information. And I've been talking to you for years now, and there's still more that I don't know. So fill us in.
Yes, the times at Alley Pond were really.
Alley Pond. And by the way, what's Alley Pond? People may not know from our area, but I know because my parents had their first kiss there. And you know because you used to play there. Alley Pond is in Queens, New York.
Yes, it's a park in New York City, in the
Mm-hmm.
Queens, and they call it Alley Pond. And that is where they built my tennis center with the building and tennis bubble. And this is back in 1987.
Okay.
And so I've been talking about that on different shows about my pro tennis career. And what was happening from the last previous shows, there's even more things. I mean, there's so many things that happened there in a short time that they couldn't believe. Some of them, just to start off with, was I think at that time at Addy Pond, I had said I had won a total 12. It was really one Fisher Open plus 11. And then I was explaining about those three tournaments that they sort of took me off of because
Mm-hmm.
they wanted it to finish off with someone else that they liked. And what happened was they gave me three additional tournaments to play. I was able to play those tournaments and I did win them. So I think I ended up there as a total of 15. And at that time, Helena Sokova, which is she became very well known in tennis, and she was saying that she's never seen anyone win so many tournaments in a short time, and with trophies and a photograph and everything like that. So she
Mm-hmm.
was so amazed, and she was really there to witness all those things happening. So that was really amazing. I think also at that time, since it was the Fisher Open had started off there in the summer of '87, they let me try some of their rackets. The
Oh, cool.
supervisor there, Henry, he had some rackets that he was given, and
Mm-hmm.
he let me try some of them. So I have some samples of them. One of them is this one here. I went out and I bought some of these old rackets. This one is, it
Cool.
says here, this is the Fisher racket. It says Fisher Open right on it.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So this one they really liked, and I played with this racket back then. It's a nice racket, has a very nice precision shape. This is really like an 80s nice shape racket. It's metal, and this still has the name Fisher on it. It's a really new racket, and it's pretty good. In fact, I did win one tournament, one match with this. It wasn't a whole tournament. I won one match with this, but then the next match after that, unfortunately, the racket didn't hold up. It broke. It
Ah,
broke like in this area. The whole racket broke.
yeah.
And I just went back to the other rackets that I had. Another racket they had also at that time was they had me try this one out. Very similar type of racket. See, the head shape is like about the same, looks the same, just slightly different. And same thing happened with this. I used it for a little while in like a match, and it broke. Didn't
Ah,
And just with those rackets, what I did was I was able to find a very nice racket from years ago. It's this Prince racket, and this is really the same kind of racket that the Prince Racket Company gave me. And let me just show for 2 seconds because I found this one. It was in excellent condition, and it has a nice leather grip.
okay.
It says right on here, calf skin leather grip. And this racket turns out to not have been such a bad racket as a backup. It was able to last a long time. One of them did break, but the other one seems to have lasted. I was able to use it. It was strung at just 60 pounds, and I think it can get me through a match in case I had a problem.
Wow.
So that's what was happening with the tennis racket. So it's very interesting. So I think at that time there was so many experiences going on. I think at that time the things with my tennis playing and entertainment, Matthew Broderick, the actor, stopped over there to say hello when I was there. And
Oh my gosh, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right?
yes, it was amazing. And I think there was also like so many experiences there that I think some of them I'd have to put on another show, but it was almost like the experiences like Animal House. It was becoming so unbelievable and in a short time too. So it was amazing how so many things were going on there in such a short time. I think one controversy that was going on there was a story with the rackets that were called like cheap rackets.
Mm-hmm.
And these were rackets that were made illegally. They were strung to 73 pounds, and they were usually made to look just like production tennis rackets of different brands. So I think going back to the original time I was starting to play with that group when I made 500, turned 18 years old, and I played with Vitas Gariolitis, and it was a Vitas Gariolitis did not win the initial game I played with them.
Wow.
He fell down on the floor, he hurt himself, he didn't want to fall the balls in. And then just topped it off, we traded rackets to see why I was hitting the ball so hard. And when I looked at his
Wow.
racket was 1.25 pounds. So I've never heard of a tennis racket with 1.25 pounds. That's wondering
Mm-hmm.
how this is possible. And I think looking at the racket, I think just looking, there's no way to tell it's only 73 pounds, but I found out that those rackets are usually strung to 73 pounds. So this whole thing, unfortunately, I think there was something very interesting of just how the players were thinking, particularly Vitas originally was thinking that I would have to say I lost the match. And that would initiate me playing with him, where he was going to teach me how to play all the different kinds of things. So that's the idea of what's going on there. And I think that initial meeting was televised on Channel 2 Sports. They had the
Wow.
truck with the boom there.
Yep.
It's somewhere. They have it on recording somewhere.
Oh my God, I used to work there. See, I wish I knew earlier. I could have run through all the archives.
Yes. So that was like the initial introduction to those kind of rackets. Now, at the time, I didn't know if this was like the beginning of starting with new tennis rackets. I was going to use these rackets and the old rackets that usually would get strung to only 65 pounds were going to get discontinued. Unfortunately, what I found out over the next few years was that these rackets, they were not legal. They didn't plan to make them legal, and it just caused such a problem because in each match, it wasn't certain if my opponent had the cheap racket. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I win the match, we don't have to look if they have a cheap racket. But if somehow the ball is going so fast and it turns out to have been that they had this racket they bought, it could cause a big problem. The game can get canceled and things like that. And so that's what was happening. So from the initial time, I had Medvedis with those story with the rackets, and those rackets at that time, back in 1985, they were selling for $3,000.
Yeah.
So this guy who was the guy who was selling it, I think over that time, I wasn't 100% certain if it was legal or illegal or what was really happening. But I think slowly the truth started to come out. So then at Ali Pond in 1987, a couple years later, I talked to the guy who's selling the rackets. In fact, he was there. He gave the racket to one of the tennis players over the Matsvilander, and I thought so. This might have been a legal exchange of tennis rackets. I wasn't sure, but I talked to him, and he had some extra rackets, and he gave me a price on one of them, like $1,500 for a used one. But in fact, I think the kid was very honest. He was saying that usually the rackets people that were buying from him were people who were having a problem staying winning. You know, they were having
Mm-hmm.
a problem. They were in the group playing with the top players, trying to move up through those numbers I had shown on the previous each level, going up, trying to get up to the top level. Some of them are under a lot of pressure. If they lose games, they have to put these sixes on their loss column, and it can get them where they have to leave.
Wow.
So this guy was selling the tennis rackets, and at that time he had tennis rackets that looked just like a Ross Signol racket with like a backward shaped arc on the bottom. So at the time, I didn't know what was happening in Ade Pond. I thought that these rackets were still like optional to buy them, and I wasn't 100% certain. He was telling me
Yeah.
I don't need the racket, knowing I'm a big winning player. I
Ah.
got the idea of what was going on. So I think at the time there, when I was there, I talked to Henry, who was the supervisor. He was, at the front desk. He's watching everything. And he, who has a college education in the sport management, he called the police right away. And
Wow.
he, in fact, from this whole development with the police, what they said is those tennis rackets are really considered selling contraband.
Wow.
They did not take it very nicely. Yes, they said that this was selling contraband and it wasn't legal at all. And I think so that was really very interesting. And what they did at that location, just as far as what I was told, is the guy who was selling the rackets was not allowed inside the building. He was allowed
Wow.
outside the building instead. So what happened is over the next weeks and months, I would look outside the door and I would
Yeah.
see him outside the door doing the same thing, selling the rackets to people. I didn't say anything about it. I think from the beginning I wasn't too certain about what's going on with these rackets. I know from my pro shop, Patrick Mulrooney and the pro shop from Hicksville, they never sell one illegal tennis racket.
Hmm.
And but I think what happened one day at the Alipana is I just by chance I walked by the door and the guy was just sort of talking to one of the players and he was just saying very upsettingly that he keeps getting arrested for selling the tennis rackets all of a sudden. And
Oh my gosh.
she was explaining that he in fact was being pressured to sell the tennis rackets and not give up selling these rackets. He had someone
Yeah.
telling him he had to sell the rackets. So this guy had a big problem with this whole story with the tennis racket. Now, I think one thing with the tennis rackets, like I was saying, each game with these tennis rackets, sometimes even the final match, it turns out if the player had the cheap
Mm-hmm.
ticket, we'd end up having to play the match over again. So I think this thing about the tennis rackets, one interesting thing is they didn't really tell the player not to play tennis anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know even if they confiscated the racket. But what happened is, as far as players I played against, they are able to come back and play another match of tennis, and usually I'd always beat them without the that racket strung to 72. Now my racket's only strung to 62, and some of them were only strung to 60 pounds.
Wow.
So that is, and so they're playing on the racket with 73 pounds. If the ball is hit so fast, that's for one reason why my rackets
Wow.
have been breaking. And it is not a legal advantage. You can only string to 65 pounds. So I think most players that play legal, they only string to like 60, 62. I don't think most people would even try to string it to 64 because if they test the strings, there might be a slight variation. Maybe they go over the 65 and then they would have a problem. Some
Yeah.
people they're very strict with, they don't let them get away with anything. So that was one very interesting thing that was happening. And then just to make matters worse with this cheat racket, so during the time when they had the big controversy with the Olympics, where the players were really pro players, and that particular Olympics, they only were allowed to play if they're amateur players. So
Okay.
I told the Bob Hanson, yeah, they gave me more than $3,000 worth of equipment and matches and everything. And but in fact, I think particularly with my situation with my pro shop, uh, John McEnroe and some other players they had a connection with my pro shop with Patrick Mulrooney. So what happened is I was told that during that time they also caught them with cheat rackets. So some players
Oh,
had cheat rackets.
how dare
They
they?
so the special investigators came down to the pro
Oh
shop
gosh.
with who had sponsored me since I was very young, only like 9 years old.
Yeah.
Came down to the pro shop. They checked all of his tennis rackets. They checked all of his records. Each pro shop, and the pro stock racket, they have to write down the racket,
Yeah.
the racket information. I think a lot of pro stock rackets, there isn't too much things that are really special about them. They're manufactured. They know it's really pro quality racket. They usually a blacked out racket, most of them. And they don't even play with the leather grip. So I think I was
Mm-hmm.
showing you the leather grip that they have there. Sometimes if you play with the leather grip, there's a whole thing about registering the new grip. If your pro shop plays with the grip, they have to do all kinds of things, and they have to write down that they put a new leather grip on. So that was
Wow.
just one very interesting thing about the rackets. So what happened is they searched his store and they told him the same kind of thing that if there's anything wrong in this store with this investigation, he's gonna have a really big problem. So he was very upset. So just by chance, I went to his shop, talking to him for a few minutes, and yeah, he told me this whole story of what had happened. Just by chance, over the years, I think the communication, I never told him that this thing with the tennis rackets, the cheap rackets, was all over with the players. And I told him, uh, what was going on with the tennis rackets and the cheap rackets. I think after that, it helped him. He called up whoever the investigators were, and I think it solved the problem for him because somehow the idea of what was going on with the rackets and what was going on with the pro shop and the players,
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't put it all together. So I think with my input, telling him just the basic facts, it really helped him out. He was off the hook with that. They found that guy, they talked to him about it. I don't know what really happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like I was saying, they termed him selling those rackets officially as selling contraband.
Amazing.
And I think even though he was caught a number of times selling the contraband, like I was saying, he was told he had to continue selling them, so he was still there selling those rackets.
Wow.
But in fact, there was another aspect also that helped me out was that whole thing that came about. I was my the pro shop, myself and Patrick Moses was sort of cleared of the whole thing with the brackets breaking. They could tell that if you're playing people and they are hitting the ball with the racket that's strung to 73 pounds, the chances of the racket breaking are very increased. And so I think from that, he was really given all of his credits back,
Mm-hmm.
staying involved. And so that really helped him out. So that really helped him out. Although even though there was so many problems, there was some things that cleared out about that. And I think he was able to really forward the message of what's going on with those rackets. So that was really interesting what was happening. And and in fact, the sad thing about the tennis rackets with the cheat rackets is that a lot of the players they continue to use the rackets. I think even with them getting caught, sometimes they go
Wow.
back to using these rackets and
It's just
just go down as using illegal equipment. And so that was what was happening. I think years later, I was again at that point. It was a number of years later. I was playing for the Pro Sports
mm-hmm.
over at Old Westbury, and there was another big problem erupted with playing John McEnroe in one of the
Wow.
tournaments. And first, I had to protest the match with him. Honestly, I didn't piece together what was happening because there was all kinds of things that I disputed with the calls and things like that. And then I think from that they investigated what was happening, and at the next match they found that he did have the cheat racket. It wasn't a legal racket. So that whole match got discounted. I ended up winning the tournament.
Wow.
I played John McEnroe again in another tournament right after that, and I was able to win the match pretty easily. I think them not allowing anything improper going on with rackets or calls or anything. And really, the player Guillermo Villa,
What?
well, he
Who?
was
What was the name?
Guillermo Villas. I think I talked
Yes.
about him.
Yes.
He
Yes.
was there on courtside. He was there on courtside. He watched the whole match, and he can tell that I clearly won the match. I think pretty good. That particular tournament, I also won that tournament, so that was pretty good. And So I think from that was really very interesting.
By the way, Alley Park today, what is there right now? It's still a park, right? Does it still have the tennis facilities and all there?
Yes, they do have it. They renovated two times. I
Okay.
think during the COVID, they renovated one time and then they have renovated again and changed the name of the tennis center. So they're still there playing. I think they play pickleball also, so this is something new that's there. And
Have
yeah,
you been there recently?
I know I did play there for a short time when I was living in uh, New York City for a while. I
Mm-hmm.
was living in New York City for about 10 years, and I was going to Ali Pond playing some tennis. And in fact,
Wow.
when I went there,
Hmm.
it was so many years, I really didn't think about the years previous when I used to play there. I just
So
played
cool.
there, and I was trying to, learn how to play tennis better and better, just like I started off from the very beginning, which was really unbelievable. And so I think since I was off from tennis so many years, I ended up working out with weights too much. I was working out at the weight gym too much. And I think coming back to tennis when I was older, 39 years old, I was way overweight. I was like 100 pounds overweight. And I had already been working out a lot, so my muscles were much larger.
Hmm.
I wasn't as thin. I wasn't really very light and thin. So then I had forgot about playing. So I was slowly learning how to play. And I sort of, over the last number of years, since I've been 39, I've been coming back, remembering all the different shots, remembering how to play. My playing has slowly
Hmm.
improved. I've been getting better and better. Even though I'm a little older now, my playing is coming back to playing, and I'm still trying to piece together all those different things, like my strategy that I had made, and all those things that I'm putting them all together, and I've been writing them down and everything, and I've been trying to improve my game, trying to lighten up to trying to stay more lean, not really get so heavy in weight or anything. So I've been working on things like that.
No,
And
it'd be one thing. Look, you've had this amazing tennis career, and what made you decide to become an architect too? I mean, most people would just have this amazing, legendary tennis career, continue coaching. And when did you also decide to start going to school to become an architect? How did that play into tennis? Or, yeah, explain to me that transition.
what that was really at the very beginning when I was in high school. Um, the idea of becoming an architect was already there. They were already suggesting working as an architect, and that wasn't too bad. I think from what I was told, working as an architect is pretty good as a side career
Yeah.
compared to sports. I think and it's good that I could work on the side, work different hours, things like that. That gives me time to go and play tennis. And so that was what was happening. And so as far as that is concerned, it wasn't too bad. I think there was a number of players that I knew over the years
Mm-hmm.
that are architects, engineers.
Yeah.
Some of the players are lawyers. They have all kinds of different jobs. I guess those are all professions. Lawyers, engineers, architects are all professional jobs. And I think those jobs is pretty similar where you can have a flexible schedule and it's sort of a work that is separate from tennis. It's not really as connected with tennis. And so that is one thing that was happening. And so that's really very interesting. And so I think so that was good. And let's see what else was going on with that was yeah, so I think the time at Ali Pond was really amazing.
Yeah.
It was longer than what I had. It was longer as far as experiences. It was amazing
Yeah.
amount of experiences going on. There were so many things happening. Unfortunately, there was some things that were more like Animal House, where there were things were going wild there. And I think
Aw.
so I think that was very interesting because I think one philosophy that we had as far as my sponsors and everything were really to allow all the other players to come and play. They could come and play. Uh, we'd like to keep that idea. Since I was a top player, I could beat any of the players. And that was one sort of the idea. I think some things had to slowly start to tighten up for different
Okay.
problems. We had the little problem with the rackets getting sold inside the
Yeah.
building, so that had to go outside. There were also some other things in that building. There was some vandalism that took place. Just one example, one thing that happened there. I think if you went to any tennis center that had glass planes, they probably would never break. But there, when I was there, two panes of the glass were really completely broken through. They had to have
Mm-hmm.
repair people come and replace the glass and everything. The middle window, there was those three windows. The middle window, it has a bullet hole right through the window. I mean, it was unbelievable. I don't think those kind of experiences would take place in just a few years. It might take 10, 20 years for those type of things to happen. And there
Wow.
were a whole bunch of other things I could maybe talk about at another time.
Yep, we're out of time. You're right. Wow. Always goes so fast. Go ahead,
So
finish your
they
sentence before we go.
So I think that was really amazing. So there were a lot of intense experiences happening there at Ali Pond in a short time. There was like years and years worth of experiences. I think 15 total tournaments. Some people don't even win one tournament the whole
Wow.
career. I mean, to
Yeah.
win that many tournaments were unbelievable. I think just to add on, I was just thinking about the tournaments I was talking about when I played as a junior, which is under 18 years old. I remember just a few tournaments. One was called the ABN. That was like one of my first tournaments. And then I played a couple seasons and I started to win. I was able to win the Manhattan Open and the Eastern. And those tournaments, in fact, the trophies went to Anthony Cambria. They didn't go to my pro shop. So that's why each sponsor has some trophies, has records of what I won. And I think I might have been
Yeah.
the only player to ever have won the Manhattan Open as a junior and as adult player. Probably the Eastern also. I think, and those wins are under different names. So even the first win with the ABN, I think, was under one of my tennis names before that. So but those I remember particularly those three tournaments, and I think I might have won. I don't know 25 tournaments at that time as a junior. I don't have the exact number because I remember starting off. I started to win a certain number of tournaments, then it really picked up. I remember as a junior, I won so many matches in a row for the Eastern. I won 40 matches that they started to think maybe I was a robot. Someone officially put through to
Holy
say,
cow.
yeah, someone put it for sure.
Aw.
How could someone win so many matches in a row? And
Yeah.
they were trying to stop me from getting the trophy. Instead,
Yeah.
someone else wanted to get the trophy. You know, the guy who protested, he had an idea of another kid getting the trophy. So you get the idea. Is that when the word gets out to people, they all want to go and they want to grab your career. They want to grab the trophy. They want to get the money bonus too. And then they could pay to get put it in the magazines. So that's what was happening. But I think with some things, I was such an amazing player. Anthony Cambria had also informed me that I was number one ranked player as a junior.
Beautiful.
So I was able to really achieve. A lot of it had to stay quiet. The thing with the player names was part of also like a little thing where then that would become like a public publicity thing. But I think there was so many problems with those names. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just trying to combine everything together because they had a little problem, like I was explaining with the contract getting brought over, and then they wanted me to
Of
change my name,
course.
like I'm a new player, like I'm someone completely different.
No.
Started to cause a big problem. So I'm putting all those memories together and listing
Good.
them down,
Well,
and
we gotta run. We gotta finish up. Go ahead. Go ahead.
so I think it's a really good thing. You know, you go onto my Facebook page, John Riggio, pro tennis player. Go on to my link I have, and I have a whole list of information of all the different chapters of playing with different sponsors,
Great.
putting it all together. And I think it's a really something enjoyable. Someone would like to read it and watch it.
Thank you so much for being here. John Riggio, we appreciate you. Have a great day. Talk
Okay,
soon.
thanks. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.